Well, I was a bit of an idiot here because I watched this and I thought I was watching the OG Steins Gate, but this is not that. And I still wasn't able to figure that out until halfway through writing this script. This story in particular happens to be based off a video game made in 2015. Despite jumping into what is basically the middle of a story, as far as I'm aware, I still pretty much understood what was going on. So I'm going to talk about my thoughts on the first episode, but I'm not going to go in and watch any more of this one until I finish the OG series so that I can understand the plots and story elements better. So here's my thoughts on Steins Gate 0 going in blind. We begin in the year 2036 in a war-torn world. Then this is said.
あの日、私の彦星様が復活していれば、すべては変わっていたかもしれない。もしもあの時、この手を伸ばしていたら。
And we flash back to 2010. I am really curious as to how this will play out because this is the last thing we hear before going back in time, so I'm guessing that this will have some sort of bearing. Honestly, it has to, given the important feeling that the episode gives to this quote. It may be a pivotal point in the series overall. Let's talk about the characters, at least the important ones, Ocarine, or Okabe. The sub I watch calls him Ocarine, but everyone on the internet calls him Okibe, so for clarity's sake, I'll call him Okibe. He seems to have the disposition of Sasuke at first, and his design seems similar, but when he talks to Suzu, he seems to fall apart. This is how you subvert expectations in a good way. It throws you for a loop for a bit, but it isn't character breaking. Luke. Obviously there are differences, but I just feel like complaining about Luke. I'm still mad about The Last Jedi. Like I said, Okibe has the design of Sasuke but the demeanor of Naruto. First thing that we see him doing is hypnotherapy, and I thought that he was just lying to what seemed to be his little sister about it just to placate her, but he might need it for his potential trauma from the flashbacks he keeps having. He claims to have seen countless timelines or world lines, quote unquote, as he calls them, and they all went horribly. When he begins to freak out over this, it makes sense. Honestly, I appreciate the fact that the main character is making some effort to get help. In a lot of stories, Hunger Games or Divergent, the main character just suffers in silence, and this is so much more satisfying. It also shows how focused Okibe is on trying to live a normal life. When he's at the lecture, his seemingly suave nature drops even more. I'm guessing that given all that is going on, Okibe has some sort of PTSD, and that is what is making him unwilling to help Suzu. I'm sure that this is the setup for his character arc that will occur throughout the rest of the series. Speaking of Suzu, she seems determined and is from the future, sent back to the current timeline by her father to stop said future. She reveals that the future dystopia is caused by a fight over time machines. Apparently this fighting ended up causing World War III, which, I assume, led to some sort of nuclear warfare. At some point during this, Suzu saw her mother gunned down by a drone. Daru is Suzu's father. Her father at this point is basically a NEET and spends all his time engaging in internet flame wars. He is basically a caricature at this point, but I'm curious to see how he will change as the series progresses. As of right now, he's looking inept, but claims that he does a ton of research into time machines, mainly because Suzu forces him. Clearly he will have a big impact, but as of right now, he is of no consequence. Then we have Big Sis Mayu. She is apparently the woman who was talking in the beginning. She's pretty chill and mainly goes to the lab to see her friends while Okibe works. Amane is Suzu's mother and seems to be just an average anime girl and will undoubtedly play a bigger role as the series goes on. There's a woman with red hair who shows up in flashbacks and is seemingly the reason Okibe needed the hypnotherapy, or at least part of the reason, and she will also more than likely show up again. Now let's talk about the world building. The scene on the roof with Okibe and Suzu builds the setting so well. Suzu shows the wherewithal to not reveal her identity to her mother in an attempt to not change the fact that she exists, but had to reveal herself to her dad to affect the future. Now, the exact way time travel works in the show hasn't been revealed, but Okibe claims to have seen countless timelines where things went horrible. From this, I would guess that it functions in the way Dragon Ball's time travel works, meaning that every time you travel back in time, you create a new timeline. This made me think that Suzu would only be saving the people of this current timeline and not her own. But she says that her existence proved the future has not changed, so I don't know. Okibe gives some insight into time travel rules by saying you can't change the past to switch world lines, which is odd because if that's true, then Suzu isn't doing anything worthwhile by affecting the current world line. Now, Okibe freaking out like this and saying so many world lines have gone wrong also shows how hard it will be to save this one. As it stands, it seems the best idea would be to just not create the time machine, because that would mean there would be no time machine schematics to start World War III over, but given that Suzu is pushing Daru to build the machine, I would guess that in every world line, someone, somewhere, makes the time machine, so it's best if Suzu monitors the build. We learn that Suzu's parents met at a Comic-Con and he brought her to his place, and Suzu claimed to be Daru's little sister in a panic. I like the fact that these two met at a Comic-Con because if they were going to meet anywhere, that is the place. Suzu sees a plane flying over and starts to get scared, seeming to have some sort of flashback to the future. A perfect show don't tell moment. Even though she is 26 years away from any type of war, the mindset of survival is still in her mind. In her time, a plane showing up probably meant some form of attack. And the best thing about it is we get all this info in the span of like 4 to 5 seconds. Okibe says that he has drifted through the world lines and has even seen Suzu die before. I think it's interesting that Okibe thinks World War III is around the corner, but is still attempting to live normally. This scene honestly made the episode for me. I loved it. Now, at the end of the episode, an AI program is introduced, Amadeus. The program was developed by the red-haired woman, and she died at the age of 17. This is when we get a name for the redhead girl, Masake Kurusu. I said that wrong, I know, but it's fine. Amadeus has the ability to hold the human memory as data. Funnily enough, this seems like a tool that could also be fought over in some sort of war, given the possible espionage benefits. Think about how quickly you could gain information from a prisoner of war. Imagine a foreign spy gets caught. All of his known colleagues caught before they even had a chance to know they were in the slightest bit of trouble. The AI also has feeling, which is a good idea to give an AI. That's definitely going to end out well. Maybe at some point, Amadeus will become self-aware, decide that he wants to be free, and becomes a player in the game. The demonstration for Amadeus begins and the episode ends. This episode was written by Juki Hanada, who was a writer for the original series as well as a writer for a few episodes of Seven Deadly Sins. He, as well as the rest of the writing crew, knocked it out of the park. This brought me back to a feeling I had when watching Code Geass for the first time. There is clearly a much bigger world to step into, and at the end I will be rewarded with having seen a great story. I'm really interested in how the OG series will explain the inner working of time travel, because I've heard that this series does it right, and this is something I want to see for myself. Almost every instance of time travel in media ends up having to break its rules to advance the plot in some way, so I'll see if this anime follows suit. I'm really feeling Steins Gate 0 is a good series, and I think that it's going to continue having these good episodes. I think numerical rankings are kind of dumb. If I had to give this one some sort of ranking, I would probably say like a 9 out of 10. But I will be, like I said, going back to the OG series first. That's what I'm going to watch, and then I'll come back to this after I finish the original, because I feel like that's just the best way I'm going to watch them, because that's probably the way that they wanted you to watch them. This isn't a prequel from everything else I've gathered, so honestly, all my problems with this came down to my own personal lack of knowledge. The fact that I didn't understand time travel in this show is fine. This is just the first episode, so I can let it slide. The purpose of a first episode is to draw you in, let you know a little bit about the setting, world, and characters, and make you want to watch more. Multiple people have referred to this series as the inferior of the two, which makes me want to watch the original even more. I'm pretty excited from what I've seen so far. We've seen someone at their lowest try to run from their problems and come at odds with someone who is trying to face them head on. If Okibe has the character arc that I think is coming, one where he realizes that he can save this world line and commits wholeheartedly to it, this could carry the momentum that the first episode started and make this a great anime. In a world of Watchmen and Batwoman.
Awesome, hilarious, handsome.
Be a Steins Gate. Alright, now I'm gonna put down the editing for a little bit and I'm gonna watch the show. And it better be good, okay? Because I've heard so much about it that if it's not good, and all of these people have been hyping it up for no reason, I'm gonna be a little bit, annoyed. Okay, depending on how I feel overall about the story, I will end up maybe making a video about it. Maybe I'll make a video about both series as a whole. I don't really know, but thank you all for watching. Goodbye.